And we're back. Hello, and welcome to this Mythos Busters stream.
Hello.
I'm Sean, and joining me tonight, we've got Justin. We've got Scott, who will be joining us again shortly. He had to step away just as we were getting rolling. And then, freshly punched through the fourth wall of this stream, we've got Fylion.
Hello.
Welcome. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to have a second Canadian on the Buster Cast. Give Scott some backup.
It's true. It's true. The balance has shifted now.
I mean, well, Sean and I live in South Canada.
Truly, you do. You do it.
You're very close to Little Canada.
Like you're here.
There is a place called Little Canada.
Yeah, Little Canada's right by Roseville.
Yep. I do see signs every so often.
Yeah, when it's kind of along the way that I would drive us there, and what's fun is all the streets are named after Canadian landmarks, and they also have little maple leaves on the street signs. It's adorbs.
I gotta check this place out.
I should look at a map sometime.
Oh yeah. Well, welcome everyone, and happy Friday, happy Ironman prep. This is what we're doing tonight. So, in case you don't know, for the uninitiated, perhaps if you've stumbled upon this video not knowing what you were in for, we are prepping for this year's Arkham Ironman, which will be played at BusterCon 2024, which is a convention that we, the Mythos Busters, put on that is Arkham LCG focused, in addition to a couple of other adjectives that you might throw at it. But Arkham Ironman is a ritual we have where we play through an entire campaign in one sitting. Mad, I know. And yet, if you talk to anyone who's done it, they will probably tell you it was exhausting and it was also peak Arkham. So, what we are doing tonight, since Edge of the Earth is the campaign that is next in line to be Ironmaned, we're going to sit down with the campaign log. I had my campaign log somewhere. Anyway, we're going to sit down with the campaign and kind of talk through different decision points, different strategies, and kind of talk about what the plan is. Because, boys, I think it's safe to say when you play an Iron Man, first of all, the tagline, Scott, is what?
Finishing is winning.
Finishing is winning. You play it, doesn't matter what happened. Finishing it is a feat, and you deserve kudos for it. But if you are going to sit down and play 6+, depending on what campaign you're looking at, in this case it's 4+ scenarios for in a whole day, you kind of have to have a plan. So that's what we're here to discuss tonight.
Yeah, I think one of the themes that whenever someone newer to Arkham or Ironmanning comes into the Discord chat and says like, oh, I'm thinking of Ironmanning this year and getting a team, but I haven't played this campaign. Like, is it going to be okay? It's like, listen, there's no time to read story text, no time to debate over what would my character do in this situation.
Right.
Like Iron Man is, I mean, it's video game speedrunning, but a card game, right? Where you make decisions beforehand, so when you come to that decision point, you're like, click, 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 and you're on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And decisions are already made. No one discusses it because you've discussed up to that point what you're going to do in certain situations. Even upgrading, I know, like for decks, like I have just like by this scenario, you want to have these upgraded, and I have an upgrade path, and the order of the cards I'm going to upgrade and the cards I'm going to take out. So there is no decision making at the time. It's I have 7 XP. Go up to the 7 XP part of the chart. I switch. I have 1 XP left over. Yep, that's fine, because I'm not going to ruin the chart. I'm just gonna save that XP for next time I upgrade. Yeah. So
and time is of the essence, but in addition to the normal, like, leaning down of your play process that you might want to partake of when you do an Iron Man, we at BusterCon also have the constraint that we're working within the hours of operation of the venue that we're at. So we have a hard out, as opposed to Justin and I Iron Man every new campaign now when it comes out, and we don't have to worry about it.
And that's why I was going to say, Sean, is if anyone is interested in Ironmanning, something you haven't done before, It's absolutely fun to do. Like I'm a huge proponent of that. Just maybe not at like the big group Ironman. Unless you have a group that's cool with it. Because again, you might have a group that's cool with it, and we're not saying that it's disallowed. Whatever works for you, but it is a very different thing. To Scott's point, if you're trying to just zip through it, as opposed to like when Sean and I do our face check runs of a campaign, we try an Ironman it, see how it goes. But it's a brain burn in a different way.
We have cried
So
off
how
from
many
the full
hours,
finish a few times.
How many hours do those take you when you do them like first play?
First playthrough, God, I don't know. We try to get started at we try to have cards on table playing by like 9 a.m. And I think the last couple times that we've done it, we were wrapping at like past midnight.
2 a.m. I think.
And that's 2-player, not 4-player.
Correct,
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
2-player. But that's that's also 2-player reading every storyline, all the entries, figuring things out, making decisions, playing new investigators. Like it's the most tired that I can remember being sometimes. Justin drags my ass across the finish line every time.
We have different strengths at different points of the campaign.
True.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this year at BusterCon, we will be doing Edge of the Earth. So as was noted in the chat, we are a little bit lucky this year in that Edge of the Earth is a little bit more straightforward than, say, the Scarlet Keys. When Iron Man discussion turns to the Scarlet Keys, boy, that's going to be an interesting one. But luckily, it's a little bit more straightforward tonight. So I'll pose this to the group. When considering an Edge of the Earth Iron Man, what do you guys think on the high level are the first few things you need to consider?
I think partners is a big thing.
Okay. Oh, and I suppose it probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. Big spoiler alert on Edge of the Earth. We are ripping the guts out of this thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue, Scott. Partners, yes.
I think partner plans for who you're gonna like talk to in various and like a sequential order of priority. So one thing we've discussed, because I think there's been a few Ironmans where we've altered the rules slightly just to help the playability of the campaign. And this year we're considering plot armor, which is you can, at the beginning of the campaign, you can choose one investigator, and that investigator is what do you call it?
Immune?
Immune to there's 3 separate times that are uncontrollable where you could lose a partner. And so at the beginning of the campaign, you can choose one partner that's immune to those 3 things. If you take that partner into a campaign, or into a scenario, and they get hit and they die, well, that's on you. But there's, so because a lot of times with Iron Man, I think there's people who want to make sure they get the best ending. There's often campaigns that have multiple good endings, but there's always the best one. And we want to make sure that people are able to do that in the Iron Man environment without just RNG ruining your day.
Yeah.
For no reason, right? Like without choice. So.
And I think that goes to kind of how we normally plan these I was about to say Iron Men, but Ironmans. Is that we kind of look at we build backward, right? Like we normally pick like, all right, we want to shoot for this resolution. How do we get there? And in this case, because it's Edge and because the good ending requires one Dr. Amy Kensler being alive, I think that's going to be a big piece. Iron Peeps. I do like Iron Peeps. McDonald, that's
Iron
better.
Peeps, yeah.
I like that.
I will say Iron Man came from the my love of the Iron Man race and how like it's 3 marathons in a row, and that's just the name. And the women's category is also called Iron Man. It's just what they use. So
thanks, Patriarch.
Quick shout out for anyone who wants more history on Arkham Iron Man. If you just search Arkham Horror Iron Man, you will land on our website, or I put the link in chat here.
One faithful
Also,
Arkham Knights.
Finishing is winning is also the slogan of the running club that used to run marathons in the town I grew up in, and that's where I got that from. So it's like if you run a marathon, like you ran a marathon,
yeah,
finishing a marathon is winning. Like that. It was for casual runners. So
Fully agree. Okay, so yeah, so talking about plot armor, it does seem reasonable. Like we don't you don't want to cheat. We don't
No.
want to cheat. You can cheat. Cheat all you want. Make it your own.
Do what
It's
you
a
want.
co-op game. We generally try to consider Iron Man, at least in our approach, as like the. We used to call it like this is what Arkham has. We're trying to position it such that this is what Arkham has instead of like world championships, right? Like that's the vibe we're going for. You want like high level Arkham play. You want to go for the good ending.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that RNG just can randomly pluck the partner you need just is not going to feel good. And, you know, for a normal campaign, that's great. But when you've put so much planning and prep and hopes and tears and love and snow and penguins into a campaign like this, you don't want it to just like turn on a dime like that. So I think the plot armor is a decent compromise.
And I think in the spirit of, I mean, when we look at drawing weaknesses for a campaign, we also have the whole ceremony of the drawing of the weaknesses that we've developed where you draw a weakness and then you can scream out that you reject your fate and throw that one back and draw another one, but you must keep the second one. And that whole idea is, you know what, you've shown up like in a physical place that you've planned for weeks to be here, planned decks with all your friends, and if you draw that one weakness that just absolutely cripples the deck that you've created, like that's not fun, right? And if I'm playing a speed run of a video game, you know what I'm doing? Reset. I'm you know, like Slay the Spire is a game that I play a lot.
Scrap
It's
the
like
run.
if I choose an option at the beginning and it's like, oh wow, that is absolute dog garbage stuff. I'm like, well, okay, I give up, starting a new one. That's the spirit we're going for, right? And I don't want someone to come to Iron Man prepared for 12 hours of gaming and in the first 2 minutes have their whole plan wrecked because RNG happens.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's the spirit we're going for.
and
Unless they're into that, and then if that's the way you want to play it,
Sure.
true.
by all
Yeah.
means. To be clear, we're not judging that. We're just laying out the options. If you want to jump into this with see what happens, more power to you.
Yeah, I mean, this is still 12 hours minimum of Arkham, but like the more searing pain is opt-in, right?
Yep. And yet, like I know, like goodness, there was 2 Iron Mans ago. Like Maxine said, no matter what you draw of my weakness, I'm taking it. And I remember her saying it was like one of the like the top 3 worst weaknesses we could have drawn for her. And she's like, well, I said I'd take it, so that's that.
I just think of that. We happened to capture the picture of Ian just mid dropping an F-bomb. I forget which one he drew, but it was
pretty sure it was Amnesia.
I love that. Yeah, just because it was the one of all of them, the one he didn't want.
That's at Justin's link, folks, if you haven't seen it.
True. That was a key moment in the history of Iron Man.
That's the best part about the drawing of the weaknesses, because sometimes you get like one that's like really, really bad, but it's not the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, but if I redraw, I might get the worst. Or do I just take the 90% bad one instead of the 100% bad one?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the call I had to make last year. I was playing a Mark who did nothing but kill things, and I got Dendromorphosis, which takes your hand slots.
That's a bad one.
And everyone said, throw that back. And I said, I don't care. I would rather have this than Doomed. Because a Doomed Mark will never survive.
No, he's going to see
I'm
Doomed.
not playing that game. So, so you know, you adapt.
Okay,
Anyways.
so partners, plot armor. What are the other potential endings? Like, because I know there's the good resolution without Kensler. Like, are there any other resolutions worth mentioning to shoot for?
No. As long as you clear all the pylons in scenario 4, you're getting either the Kensler ending or the not Kensler ending.
Yeah.
Then if you don't clear the pylons, regardless of Kensler, you just get the less good ending. So,
and if you cross streams, you've still played, and finishing is winning.
And then you must construct additional pylons.
That's true. You don't win the campaign, but you do finish.
True.
Okay, so building back from that, Getting to that ending is really just a matter, if I'm recalling correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm really shooting from the hip here. Is that you have to talk to Kensler each time you have like the Quiet Nights interludes. Is that accurate to say?
Yep.
Okay. That's a good place to build back from. Obviously, you got to keep her alive. And then talk to her and hopefully, I mean, I don't know. Scott, are we doing plot armor? I know we're talking about it. We're doing it, right?
I mean, I feel like we should. Like
Yeah.
every time we've done Iron Man, we always shoot for the quote unquote best ending. As far as Iron Man goes, like if you want to say if you won or lost, like anytime it says the investigators win the game or win the campaign, that's considered a win.
Yeah.
In multiple campaigns, there are multiple endings that all say the investigators win the campaign. Some of them have an exclamation mark.
Some of them have a question mark.
Yeah, or some have a period. Like it. So, but the Kensler ending has an exclamation mark, and I feel like that's the one I feel like I want to go for, and I'm cool with using plot armor. Because I feel like if I were speedrunning this as a video game, at any point if Kensler died in one of those 3 absolutely uncontrollable points, I would just reset the video game and go again. So
yeah, exactly. All right.
So speaking of Kensler, quick, can you guys remind me the stuff with the allies and Resolute or not? Does that matter with her, or is that just a separate thing?
So while one of you smarter guys pulls things up, Resolute just means that you've played through Fatal Mirage and like completed their branch of it, and then you get the Resolute version that is a little bit like they're generally just more powerful versions of the ally, and then they are also protected from. What are they protected from? The 2 random kills in the middle.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, they can't die in the random death. So really, the airplane crash is the main one. Is the main one that is going to ruin some people's day.
Yeah.
Okay, but it protects them. It doesn't have any bearing on the choose your own adventure to get to an ending.
No.
Okay.
No, the nighttime interludes are totally not caring about Resolute or not. That's just alive dead.
Yes.
But if she has been killed, you would have to play Fatal Mirage in order to get her back before the next nighttime interlude.
If she's dead, she's gone. You're not bringing anyone back from the dead in Fatal Mirage.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If she's dead, she's dead.
Sorry, not dead, but not the airplane crash one, but the taken status. I forget what it's
like
called.
The MIA
Oh
status?
Yeah. If she disappears in the night, you can rescue her in the night and she'll be fine. So.
Okay. Well, do we want to start on Ice and Death?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Do we want to hop over to TTS so you guys can flash some cards? Is that the thought?
That's the thought.
Let's go.
If you've got it open, at least that might.
I do. Okay. I'm going to go actually grab my campaign guide. So you guys go ahead and talk through Ice and Death.
I'm going to do that too.
All right. Well, in Ice and Death, there's one location you should really know. It has Shelter 8.
It does. I've never actually ended there.
I think because we're using that plot armor stuff, one part of the plot armor is if you do go into a scenario and bring Kensler or whoever your plot armor person is, and you decide to bring them and they die, that's on you. Plot armor only protects from the 3 unavoidable random choices. So that includes like if you don't end on Shelter 8 and you end on Shelter 7 or something, and your person goes, that's on you. So
I have another question there with the plot armor, Scott. I don't have an answer here, but now knowing with the Resolute that can protect them. Are we doing plot armor? Like, let's say we go with Kensler. It's plot armor for the 3 unavoidable.
Yeah.
Or it's plot armor for the plane crash, and then we are responsible for running through Fatal Mirage to protect her.
Plot armor is for the 3 unavoidable partner picks. So plane crash, the mountain climb, and then in
City of the Elder things, the like
the
wall.
other things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I just wasn't sure if there was that little part where we could get a little more agency back. If then again, there's like plot armor and plot armor plus, and plot armor plus is for all 3. Otherwise, it's you make sure she lands, and then you have to deal with it.
You could choose that, but there's also the mountain climb and then City of Elder things where she could just gone, and now plot armor doesn't do you anything. So.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Big Kahuna points out as far as acing ice and death, I think this is particularly salient, but I do think that Edge does really want you to be able to hit every stat at an honest test. So I think in planning the team out, you want to make sure that you've got someone available to hit a high test at each stat, honestly, without trickery. Well, I mean, trickery is fine, but like you got to like not substitute or do anything weird like that.
Hopefully hit a 5. Like each person has a 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just looking at the map for Ice and Death, there are tests on 4 of the locations, 1 for each stat, that are 4 difficulty, or in the case of the Crystalline Cavern, 5 agility. If you want those supplies back. So if you want those, you are covering all your bases, which I know not everyone does Iron Man 4-player, but if you're doing 4-player, you should be able to do if you try.
4-player Iron Man is both a blessing and a curse. For various scenarios and various...
4-player Arkham is both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
So let's talk about supplies for a quick second. So that's kind of one of the main carrots in all 3 parts of Ice and Death. Like whatever you can't clear up in part 1, you might be able to grab in part 2 and 3. So aside from getting the actual cards themselves, what I can't remember what else having gotten more or less, more or fewer, Stannis, of the supplies does to the overall campaign experience.
So I managed to look into this afternoon.
Lovely.
So none of them have any effect beyond their own printed ability, and each one of them can potentially stop a frost token being added to the bag.
Ooh.
So going into Forbidden Peaks, if you have the sledge and Alaya is still alive, that stops a frost.
Nice.
If you don't have them, frost goes in. Going into City of the Elder Things, if you have Cookie and you have Dynamite, stops a frost. And then going into Heart of Madness, if you have the Miasmic Crystal and just have the crystal, I guess they didn't want to force you to have someone alive at that point. So just the Miasmic Crystal again stops a token being added. And that's it for story effects as far as I can tell.
Okay.
Like there's just nothing else. I don't think there's anything on the cards that references it. So it's just, do you want to block those frost with the sledge, the dynamite, and the crystal? And then do you want that thing clogging up your deck if you want its ability?
Sure, yeah. And some of them are better than others for different investigators, obviously. Am I remembering correctly that you get potentially more VP out of to the Forbidden Peaks with the amount that you pull out, with the amount of supplies you pull to the top?
In the strangest way, yeah.
Okay.
So it's 1 XP. Sorry, for each asset that gets to the top and someone resigns it with it under their control, someone can add it to their deck. And the person who adds it to their deck gets an XP for doing so.
Got it.
Okay. It's not global XP, and you don't want to put all 7 in your deck just for 7 XP, because that is probably going to gum up your deck more than it's worth.
Although the sledge does do work in that regard sometimes, but I guess you got to find that first too. You want to backpack into a sledge into more items.
It was just Bob running a store all the way up the mountain.
Yeah, Bob's a
That
decent
might
pick.
be what I run at this.
Yeah, Bob's a decent pick for this campaign, believe it or not, the one he came in. Okay. So, as far as Ice and Death in its 3 parts go, do you guys think there's any like real strategy to like obviously the camp is the first main goal, but beyond just making sure you clear the camp that you want to get to, do you think there's any real thought that goes into how you open up the map and what you explore first, that sort of thing?
I think you want to. I think you just want to open up as much as you can in scenario 1, or in part 1, even if they're not like the good locations, because as soon as it's open and it stays open. And that text on the back of the locations doesn't go away, and the locations don't reveal themselves. So if you want to get into the spots, you do have to still spend the clues at some point to get there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I suppose there's the benefit of if you've opened it in part 1, you don't have to spend the clues, and the amount of clues that are available to you is also higher. So it's like a compounded benefit for. So do you think the go-to strategy then is just open as much as you can in part 1?
I think so. And we're all kind of shooting for the Crystalline Cavern because it's got that Shelter 8. It's also got 3 per investigator clues on it. Like
At a 5 shroud.
that's yeah, at a 5 shroud, but those are clues that are available. Ooh. I was going to say they're available for pickup. I think they might actually, your camp might actually lose its clues
I think that's the case.
in a later part.
I believe that's the case.
So maybe don't camp there if you want all the clues on the map. But like more generally speaking, if you haven't been to those spots that need 4 clues per investigator to open in part 1, quite honestly, good luck getting into them in later parts. So open everything you can.
One big thing too is wherever we camp, that's the amount of XP you get.
Yes.
Like the shelter value. So if we do, like, I feel like, going for the Crystal Cavern, the 8
Yeah.
shelter, like that one is ideal.
Because
Because
then
you can also then skip Ice and Death Part 2.
Yeah, you get to skip part 2, which
Because Part 2 offers no XP.
it
Besides
does
any-
offer a little bit of Tekalili relief and a little bit of frost relief, but I still think that if you can skip it, it's a better play in the context of Iron Man.
Oh, I got to go off about frost.
Let's go then.
Go.
It costs 1 frost, and when I say cost, I mean add to the bag. It costs you 1 frost to play part 2. There are 2 story cards that will be on the map that can remove a frost. But if you have more than 1 lost partner,
They may not be.
maybe one of those story cards isn't there. And maybe one of those story cards is actually at the worst location and you just never get to it. So your best case scenario is that you've removed a single frost by doing this.
So
More
you're
likely
net
is
neutral.
probably that you come out even. And I've done it. I've gone in saying, great, I'm going to clear 2 frost, and I've not cleared any, and I've basically lost ground on that front. So be careful with that.
I just played that one in my solo campaign, so the wounds are fresh.
Yeah, I don't need to tell you to be careful here.
Yeah, so ideally, if we can skip part 2, that's good. Now, here's an interesting question. If, say, you only manage to get Shelter 7, Shelter 6, you lose a couple people, or a couple people go MIA, and you have the option to run Scenario 2. Or Ice and Death Part 2, specifically, as Scenario 2. Are there any partners where you're like, they're okay? Like, they can just go, just for the sake of saving time?
What's the one that gives you on you?
Elia. Yes.
So then you can go back to Fatal Mirage and just go
Poor
grab the
Elia.
pepper.
Everyone likes his dog way more than him.
Yeah, well, sucks to suck, I guess. But
so, I mean, is that a thing you guys think anyone should consider? Is maybe there is a certain situation where you just lose some people to part 2 and play on?
I only care about 3 allies.
So yes.
Keep Kensler alive. Keep Claypool alive because he's mitigating all the frost, and keep Ellsworth alive because some of those attachment treacheries are brutal.
So backbreaking.
Let the others go. They'll be fine.
That's kind of where I was
thing
going.
To keep in mind too, and I bring this up because I was actually just reading through our log from the Circle Undone Ironman from FarcumCon is, let's say the first scenario takes us 3 hours for some reason.
Well, I mean, let's say, like, hypothetically.
Again,
for whatever reason.
Right, but there is the real world clock you're playing against. And so if that's one of the things we do track is where can we just pull the ripcord on some real life time. That might be one.
Scenario 7 where we just said, go get the XP, then die? And it was actually better. It was
there was one of them, yeah.
The scenario that Nick had never played, the pandemic.
Oh, yeah. It was Clutches of Chaos.
It was actually better to doom out than resign, weirdly. So
is it Clutches of Chaos? Now I have to go look.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds right.
Man,
you said it with confidence, so I believe you.
Look, yeah. I'm normally pretty good. I'm obviously a big Arkham boy, but sometimes I'm like, I haven't played TCU in probably a year, so I'm rusty on it. Okay.
So my opinion on this is we go for Shelter 8.
Yeah.
And we skip Ice and Death Part 2. We get all the XP that we can from 2 scenarios in 1 scenario. And that's that.
Is there any reason to consider? Well, I mean, I guess let's move on to talking about Part 2 then. Is there anything else to be said about Part 2 beyond maybe do a risk assessment for who's worth going after and who isn't? Don't get trapped by the idea of removing frost tokens.
It's a time to go and get your supplies if you want them. Like I carried 7 supplies up the mountain in my first play because I was playing every scenario, and playing Part 2 gave me the time to go and pick up everything.
Yeah.
So I guess if you really want the supplies, Part 2 is the time to kind of add rounds on to grab them.
Yeah, and Part 2 incentivizes exploring inherently. I mean, I know Part 1 does too a bit, but even beyond your first play where you don't know where everything is, Part 2 really incentivizes you exploring to find the people under their locations. Okay. So then kind of rounding out the decisions on Ice and Death Part 3, is that worth considering skipping? What is the plus and or minus for skipping that guy? Because the attack you can just run away from, right?
Yeah, so it costs a frost to go in, which so you want to make sure that's worth it.
Yeah.
There's 5 bonus XP if you defeated the hunting creatures.
You get the big guys.
Yeah.
That's the big reason to do it. Is if you can take out the big creatures, you probably.
Is the question.
Probably.
I feel like yes.
Yeah.
Personally, is what I'm leaning, but
especially like 5 XP at the start of the campaign, I would say is better than 5 XP at the end of the campaign, because 5 XP at the start
100%.
is in every deck and
100%,
and makes you win every scenario.
Well, and that's what we haven't even got around to. I mean, this will be for later. I don't want to fully derail it, but thinking about where we could avoid other frost going forward, or remove, or anything like that to mitigate. So it's it's let's call it like half a frost overall if we're trying to figure out how much is actually staying in the bag.
Yeah, I think too. Like if we consider plot armor, if we choose to protect Kinsler, I assume we do. The the guy, I forget his name now, who removes the frost tokens, he might die in the airplane crash, and now we're hooped. So we take the frosts as we do, but
Yeah.
Pseudo Nymph does say in chat though. He mentions that you have to defeat all the sleeping nightmares to get the full 5 XP.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure our decks are able to do that. I think, and we'll talk about this in our actual episode. I think we probably can.
I think it's perfectly doable if you kind of know that you're going to have a heavy fight scenario, and you just build for it. Like on that note, though, there is a caution to throw about part 3, which is that it's not a free resign action. It costs 4 clues to resign.
Yeah.
For each investigator that resigns. And if you doom out, you are defeated, which is like fine, except don't forget the rule that if you're defeated, your partner's defeated.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, like, don't go into Ice and Death 3 hoping that you'll kill the monsters, because if you get stuck there, the punishment is terrifying.
Yeah.
For the whole campaign.
And perhaps be cautious which partners you bring with.
Now, just a question, Fi. I can pull this up, I think, after a few clicks or whatever. But the whole costing 4 to resign, can you bypass that with I'm out of here?
You can, because it is a resign effect on a location, on whatever your camp is. That's an extremely good shout. I'm mad I didn't think of
it. That is a good I'm out of here for sure.
I only know of that because of Carcosa. What was the next campaign?
Oops.
TFA? No, not Forgotten Age. TFA?
TFA was after Carcosa, wasn't it?
What was the one where you're like exploring and you have to connect all the locations?
TFA.
Yeah.
Or Edge of the Earth.
No, it wasn't Edge of the Earth. It was way before. No, it was TFA. No, was it?
Yeah, the Forbidden Wilds. Are you thinking of the Forbidden Wilds?
No. It was Dunwich, Lost in Time and Space.
Oh,
because one person had to reveal that location, and then anyone could play I'm out of here and bypass that. So anyone who can take level 0 rogue cards, and I believe for that Ironman, we actually, like, people who had access to level 0 rogue saved 2 XP for I'm out of here, just to like swap a 0 XP card for that. And if like one person got out, then everyone's getting out.
Mm-hmm.
That was I remember that one. Yeah. Because I was playing Rex, and I saved 2 XP to swap in 2 level 0 rogue cards
into your splash slots. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing I will point out, as is on the screen right now, at least the resign action allows you to spend those 4 clues as a group. You do not have to have gotten 4 clues as a fighter to resign. So there is that.
That's always good. Yeah.
All right. As far as I'm just trying to think other like decision points and kind of strategy points within Ice and Death, any of the 3 parts.
I want to give a shout out to Apirophobia, the treachery.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a willpower test where it's the difficulty is your not your shroud, your shelter value. And if you fail, you either take a horror for each point you fail by, or drop 2 clues, or add a frost token to the bag. And critically, if you manage to fail by 0, like as people have done, they draw that before they've left the crash site, they auto fail. You can't take 0 horror as a result of failing the test. So that option's not on the table. So if you don't have the clues, that card is adding a frost token to the bag. So watch out for that. Don't let that happen to you.
So failing by 0, I'm trying to think of common reasons that might happen.
Normally it would just be difficulty 0 and you draw the auto fail.
But difficulty 0 auto fail. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a couple weaknesses too, where it's like you
Sure.
failed
13th
ties.
curse or vision.
Yeah,
13th vision.
Yeah.
13th vision.
So-
There it is.
Yeah.
That's rough.
So, you know, be aware of the unexpected effect that card can have on your whole campaign state.
Mhm.
But of course, also, if you only have one clue, you can drop only one clue, and that counts as a good enough choice. So,
And am I remembering correctly that the reason for that is because in the resolution, you have to pick a resolution of this that changes the game state, right?
Yep.
And taking
Yeah.
0 horror does not change the game state, therefore you can't take it.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I have to show it to Ishtaka Simp. Reject 13th vision. If I got 13th vision as a weakness, I will absolutely take that over so many other weaknesses.
Just
Oh my
don't
goodness.
fail a pyrophobia.
Yeah.
What is a pyrophobia? Have we talked about that before? Is it fear of ice, snow? Is it a real thing? Or did MJ make up a phobia?
I feel like it's the fear of infinity or eternity.
Oh.
Oh, so all millennial people have it?
No, that's nihilism, Scott.
Oh, right.
I know
It's
there's a
considered
very,
one
very
of the more
like,
abstract phobias and can manifest as a fixation on the endlessness of space and the many possibilities of time.
Mm.
you know, yeah, I get it. I've gotten lost in like the infinite like-ness of space before. I've never been like afraid of it, but I've also never
For
been
example-
we just found out what my phobia is called.
Yeah. For example, someone might be afraid of living forever after death, or they might simulate this experience in their mind.
Mm.
If you're living forever after, we don't need to go down this rabbit hole. It's fine.
So, okay. So should we, as a group then, for this certain treachery, plan to have even the killers be able to have at least one or two clues available?
It's not a bad idea for even the killers to have a clue, or
Yeah.
just be prepared to take horror equal to
Yeah.
whatever you're at. I mean, like, you know, when you're at shelter 2, it's 2 horror, it's fine.
Yeah. When you're at
It's
shelter
it's
8, not
when
so
you're at
great.
shelter 8 that maybe Roland Banks isn't going to do so hot.
Mhm.
Finn Edwards isn't going to do so hot on a willpower test.
Mhm.
So I don't know. It's one of those, just be aware it's in there, and you know, yeah, if you're a guardian, bring in evidence or a scene of the crime, and that'll protect you from it happening.
I think one
Or-
thing I've learned from Ironmaning is just have everyone, even your straight clover, be able to do or have 3 to 4 cards of damage, and even have your straight killer have 2 to 4 cards of I can get a clue or two.
It comes in handy
Like-
far more often than you would expect, even in 4-player.
Even playing like Sniper Mark, it's like, well, scene of the crime and an evidence or two, right? I mean, Mark's a bit different because he can just take
can just have
advantage of
skills.
his intellect. Yeah, but like just anything just to get a clue or two. That's it. Like you don't need much, but just have it. Just have a bit.
And while we're shouting out shitty treacheries, I want to give a big shout out to
I know which one you're going to pick.
why is it Polar Mirage, Justin?
Hmm.
Why is it Polar Mirage? This is why someone takes Ellsworth? Yeah.
Ellsworth.
I'm also strongly considering Matter Collapser, Hyperphysical Caster for this sort of purpose. Orphic Theory or Alter Fate, also great options at low XP if anyone's looking at in the thick of it or bothers to take one of those weird investigators where they have XP up front. But Polar Mirage in the wrong location is just so... It's such a bummer. It's such a bummer.
So it is one of the most devastating treacheries, I think, in the whole game.
Yeah.
Because there's like no way, there's no good way around it. I will recommend a card called Patrice Hathaway for it.
Sure. Yep. Patrice is a good option
Oh.
as well.
Have we used Patrice in Iron Man yet? I don't think we have.
Yeah, I did. I did in
Oh, you did?
TCU. I did the
Yeah.
looping Alter Fate Patrice to
Oh,
clear all
yes.
of the
Yeah, you
treacheries
did.
in TCU.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be opposed to playing her again, but I know at this point we have been trying to retire them after a single Iron Man.
I mean, we try. I'm not completely against it, but
Yeah.
but
When the
also
choice
technically,
seems
well,
square, like, we'll bring someone out of retirement, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah. I mean, she does deal with Tekalili weaknesses really well by just
By just
rotting
blasting
them.
through them.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, is playing her again our investigator selection equivalent of plot armor? We get to do it once.
Oh.
I mean, here's my thing. I
Plot
think
armor or
that
redemption arc?
we try to play a different investigator like throughout Iron Man each different time. Have we repeated once? I feel like we repeated one time
We
because of a
haven't.
different team.
I don't think we've repeated in proper Iron Man, but when we started doing Return to Iron Man, we have.
Right.
Agnes has been around more than once. Oh, I think maybe in proper Iron Man, Agnes is the one, because Justin played Agnes in TCU and Casey played Agnes in
Yes.
Dunwich, if I'm recalling correctly.
Case did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, they played them. I have a thought that maybe we top it at twice. But anyways,
Okay.
like
Well, that's
if
fine.
you're playing investigator 3 times, that's too much. But for the occasional one, anyways, let's get back to
I mean, I think the
this.
goal is just you don't like bring the same crazy, bulldozer of
Yeah.
a deck to every campaign, but like, be
Well,
able to.
and I
Non-Ever
think
Rex
I
every
think the
time.
playing me playing Agnes in TCU was a little bit like there's an asterisk on there because it was I typically don't play on TTS. That was my first Iron Man. We just needed to give me a deck I could play and knew
Yeah.
that one I was playing at the
Yeah,
time. So
yeah.
that one,
Yeah.
slight little asterisk on there.
Yeah. So of course I handed him a mystic because that's what I did. Keep it simple. Oh, here's this combo. Here, you need things in play to do anything. Okay. So anything else to say on Ice and Death before we move on to the Forbidden Peaks? Or I mean, should we touch it? When are we going to touch on Fatal Mirage? I guess maybe I should ask that question.
Well, this is where it comes in the campaign guide.
Let's go there then. Fatal Mirage, the biggest question mark for everyone's Iron Man plan, I'm sure. So the first opportunity you have is if you lose two or more partners in part 2. Is that correct?
If you've lost 3 people total
More than
by
2.
the
Okay.
end of Ice and Death. So that's 1 in the plane crash, and then 2 more either from they got lost in the middle of the night, or they just got defeated through normal play.
Got it.
You can force an early Fatal Mirage by just assigning all your damage to someone.
By just throwing your partners under the bus. Okay. So Fatal Mirage itself, which now I'm going to go to that thing. Like, how would you describe Fatal Mirage Phi to someone who hasn't played it before?
It's a progressive press your luck scenario.
I like
As
that.
in, it's the Midnight Mask style. You can keep, or you're trying to do as much as you can, but they let you keep coming back for more.
And the point of it is to work through the differing branches. Like the whole thing kind of like slowly splits off, corresponding to each partner, and each one has an ultimate resolution. And if you clear that, you can potentially take the resolute version of that partner, which are generally, are all better than their normal versions. And as mentioned, have a little bit of protection from shitty shit. So, Fatal Mirage, YN? Question mark.
Oh, as in yes, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Why the letter N?
I thought you were hung up on the fact it was just question mark and not 3 question marks since it's scenario question mark, question mark, question mark.
That's right.
I think there are 2 good reasons to do Fatal Mirage. One is to get the allies that you want to protect and make them resolute so that they're not going to die from random campaign effects. You also get like the resolution or resolute version of the ally, which for some of them is significantly better, and for some of them is just fine. I think the other reason to do it is to farm XP. There's a lot of XP here.
There's a lot of XP. You see, here's my problem: is I
lot.
often say N to Fatal Mirage when I'm playing through Edge, even on my own. I have forgotten how much XP is in here. Are they just like straight up on the locations, or do you get them for how do you get XP in it? Remind me.
This is weird, and depending on how your intuition goes, it's slightly counterintuitive. Because you, as you said, you're going down the path for each partner to get to their destination, and then you flip over their kind of terminal space, and if the partner is still alive, it spawns a fairly tough enemy that has an ability related to that partner, and you can defeat that enemy to get resolute partner and 1 XP. If the partner is dead, you flip over the location, you get 2 XP, and you go back to the center.
So you start chasing the dead partners, and that's a farm.
It, like, you go in, you make Kensler or whoever you want to protect, you make them resolute as fast as you can, and then you just go every dead person's path. You don't have to fight something big. You're just getting clues, and you're getting twice the XP for every path you clear.
I like that. I've
and then you come back again once the rest of the team is dead, and you do all their paths.
You make a compelling argument. And am I remembering correctly that one you can nope out at any moment, or do you have to like make it back to the central location to resign? Or do you have to like just like wait it out?
So you decide every time you cash in on VP.
That's what
so
it is.
Like every time you defeat an enemy or clear off a dead person's terminal spot, that's when you decide if you're quitting or continuing.
Got it.
And the main reason to actually quit on your own terms is that if you're defeated, or if you doom out, you're defeated. And if you're defeated, your partners are defeated. And it's not much of a worse feeling than making someone resolute and then immediately having them die.
You sound like you have some first-hand experience on the matter.
Tell us who hurt you.
Only once.
It sounds like once was enough.
Yeah.
All right, sorry. Okay, there we go. I finally figured TTS out. I was trying to actually like throw Fatal Mirage out there, and I didn't realize that there's 3 separate parts to it up here. There we go. Fatal Mirage. Okay. Yeah. Does Fatal Mirage have any scenario-specific encounter cards? I know the locations are all their own thing. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, Evanescent Mist.
Evanescent Mist.
Yep, that's the one.
Anamnesis.
And the Horrifying Shade. Okay, so it's got its own set. Here's where I just reveal that I've avoided Fatal Mirage almost entirely since my first playthrough of this campaign.
Me too. Right there with you.
Couldn't even tell you why. Like Resolute's good, and especially the partners that like gel well with your investigator. Like it's really nice to have an upgraded version, but yeah.
I should also say the Resolute versions all have like higher health or higher sanity.
Yeah.
So.
Let me pull the nope. Nope. Are they in here? They're probably in here. Resolute. Yeah, so let's look at some of these side by side here. You got regular Dire. You got Resolute Dire. Yeah, so higher sanity, and it turns from a hard action into a triggered ability.
I undersold these. These are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Danforth goes up. Look at the color is different on that template too. I don't know, maybe it's just the upscaling in TTS, but TTS makes me TTS makes me notice more details in the art and card templates than I ever catch with my real human eyes.
Because when you hold down Alt, you zoom in
Yeah.
and you get to see all the card.
Yeah,
Totally.
basically seeing like a VHS sized card on my screen.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so
For those of you children, VHS is
Yeah.
is the
For
format
those
that
of you
beat
not-
Betamax.
God, I had a Betamax. Oh,
We had a laser disc. Well, my grandpa had a laser disc, and then we inherited it when he decided it wasn't worth the shelf space.
I had a Betamax with Mary Poppins, and I watched Mary Poppins so often. We needed to get a new Betamax tape of Mary Poppins.
Did you guys ever
Oh, yeah.
have? All right, sorry, we're just going on a millennial tangent
Yeah.
here for a quick moment. Did you guys ever have like in your local like video rental store, like that one video that you'd always make your parents rent for you, and then you're fairly certain your family is the reason it was eventually worn out? I did,
I did not actually.
and it was He-Man: Secret of the Sword.
I did not have that, but because my hometown is too small to have a video rental store.
Oh no!
It was just
Yeah, that
it
would
was
do
just a rotating
Oh,
kiosk
wow.
at the grocery store, and so then the movies weren't there that long.
All right, tangent over. Fatal Mirage. So strategy, decision points. I can't bring much to this conversation, I'm afraid.
Drive into the investigators you want to help / save.
Go in the direction you want. Preemptively open the stuff so that if you're coming back, it's easy to go or easier to progress.
Mhm.
Um,
How many times do you have to do Fatal Mirage?
0.
0.
Okay.
You can choose to skip it completely. Which, I mean, depending on who dies.
Well, we were just talking about, or if I can't remember if you had stepped away at this moment, Scott. But if I was just talking about how if someone dies, you can follow their branch, not fight a boss, and get 2 XP for your trouble. So like, it's got decent XP rewards without much hassle. I mean, outside of the time it takes to play it, of course, which is something.
Yeah.
we should also shout that the first time is free, and the second and third times do cost a frost
True.
each. So, account for that.
But maybe it depends on when we settle on investigators and upgrade paths.
Mm-hmm.
If this is where we make up any difference we think there will be in where we want to go versus what we'll get throughout.
It kind of feels like I want to place it between Forbidden Peaks and City of the Elder Things. Because I feel like as far as like Fylion, you mentioned like XP early is way more valuable than XP late. And after Ice and Death and Forbidden Peaks, you still have City of Elder Things, Heart of Madness, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like you can jump in there and you have, is it 2 out of the 3 dead people guaranteed?
Yep.
So you can go grab some quick XP and jump out, and then
make Kensler resolute and move on with the campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting inflection point because like each time you come back here, you're adding a frost, and your agenda has less doom threshold or a lower doom threshold, so you get less time to spend here. But the later you come, the more XP you have, so the more XP you're going to get out of this scenario. Like if you come right after Ice and Death 1, you're not getting as much XP as you are after Forbidden Peaks. So, and that makes your second trip harder because you have 2 fewer rounds to do it also.
And your first trip remains free even if you do it later in the campaign? Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like you make 1 trip.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And that's the ideal way.
Uh-huh.
And you just go hard for XP. And I don't know. When I was offline thinking, to me, it's after Forbidden Peaks. You go and grab 4 XP super fast and be done with it.
I think 7 is the target if you really want to push. Like it's the easy push target. So that's 1 for making Kensler or whoever resolute,
Right.
and then you've got 3 dead partners. So that's 3 terminal locations where you're not fighting a boss.
Oh, so that'd be after City of Elder things then.
Whenever you can't do this until you have 3 defeated partners.
Right.
So if you want to do this after Forbidden Peaks, you're throwing someone down the mountainside.
Yeah.
Which
guess
is fine.
My ideal is we don't lose someone in the scenarios.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, and then you're waiting till after City.
yeah.
Which is
seems okay. Like, as you mentioned, we'll be a little bit more powered up.
yeah. I mean, at that point, consider if you even need it.
Yeah.
Because like if Dr. Mal is still alive, then Kensler can't be killed by the random effect in scenario 4, so she doesn't need to be resolute. And scenario 4 is not that hard, guys. Like scenario 3 is
Harder
the
than
tougher
4.
one.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So if Kensler's guaranteed safety at that point, you can skip Vital Mirage and probably do okay in Heart of Madness. Give up that 7 XP or whatever. So
And as you mentioned, it is a push your luck situation, so it's the sort of thing where you can call audible in the moment to be like,
Yeah.
hey, we got objective 1, we got 2 XP, this is taking longer than we wanted it to, or we last scenario took longer than we wanted it to. Let's just push.
Yeah.
Or we got the exact treacheries drawn that just cripples us.
Sure. Yeah.
Like in the first couple turns. Yeah.
That's never happened to us in Ironman.
Never. No. I don't.
And unlike Innsmouth, where you guys made the audible to skip Layer of Dagon, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then
yeah.
And because that campaign has so much going on, you missed the trigger that you needed to have.
Yeah, we
by doing
lost
that.
the plot literally.
It's not. That's just not a factor in Edge. It's did you talk to Kensler 3 times, and is she still alive?
Mm-hmm.
So,
which is nice. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
we have a proven ability not to make great decisions on the day.
My heart still hurts from the fact that we did that.
Because
we were fighting the hours. It just is.
We were, and you know what? Here's the thing: we were fighting the fact that we were running a convention.
Yeah, that
and that slowed us down, right? I think if we had been 4 people at a table, not having anything else going on, we would have gotten the true ending.
Yeah,
because our decks at that point were just humming.
Mm-hmm.
They were going. So
yeah. It was external influences for sure.
Yeah, like the final scenario ended up being an absolute cakewalk, as far as I remember. Like it was like comical.
It's a capital W in my book.
Yeah.
Anyways. Okay. So anything else to say about Fatal Mirage? Do we think?
Nothing more me.
Right. I have a question here, and it's coming from chat about if we are going to use plot armor on Kensler, do we even need to bother to resolute her?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what Phi was talking about. Is if we don't lose anyone up to that point, then we won't actually have the option for Fatal Mirage until after all 3 random moments have happened.
So yeah, again, Dr. Sinha is what matters for that. Dr. Sinha basically gives Kensler plot armor in scenario 4. So if you've lost Sinha, then you have to make Kensler resolute. Sean, you're looking at me like I'm crazy.
No, I'm figuring out the Twitch the Twitch. We're getting raided with the yeah. Anyway, that's all that was. Every time I do Twitch, I have to figure out Twitch again because we do it so infrequently. I feel like I'm figuring it out for the first time.
I want viewers.
If only I could click a link and get viewers. Wouldn't it be nice if it were that easy? Okay. I'm gonna step away and fill my drink up. Why don't you boys talk about To the Forbidden Peaks a little bit? Right.
Weirdly enough, one of my favorite scenarios.
I think. Okay. Before I step away, I love the minimalist map design. This scenario does so much with so little. It's great.
Yes.
It's great. All right. Now I'll be. I'll be.
So I was telling, or I've been mentioning on the podcast that I've been running my brother and his wife through Edge, and they've never played it, and we had to pause, I think, after City of Elder Things. But when we got to Forbidden Peaks, I told them it's unlike anything else in Arkham. It's again, small map. You're just trying to keep moving, and you're like, oh, I can get there. It's not that far. But the scenario can repeatedly just be like, JK, go back. Uh, and they loved it. Like they just
What's the furthest you've seen someone fall down the mountain?
I don't remember, and I've only played it twice. So
I think I fell 4 steps from one treachery.
Whoa.
That is the only problem with Norman in this campaign.
Mm.
This throws an agility test at him, and he goes, "Well, guess I'll fall."
oof. 4.
You just want to get to the top. That's
Yeah.
that.
And so at this point with this one, we're just trying to. I mean, what's the main goal with this one? Is it, because I'm trying to remember about, is it for the purposes of Ironman? Is it, hey, we have these certain assets we want, let's prioritize those and just get? Is it try and take everything with?
I feel like
I don't
depending
know.
on what expedition supplies you have, we prioritize certain ones, and I don't know which ones we prioritize yet. But yeah, I feel like I want to take everything we have at this point up the mountain.
Okay.
And I even want to have 1 or 2 extra ones that we can just leave behind.
Sure.
And I think McDog here in chat, prioritize the ones that prevent frost. Like I feel like frost tokens in this entire campaign, they are the enemy.
I mean, we're
Well, then
talking
is
about
this
it a
also,
lot.
is this another one where we can prevent on the front end? Like when we go into the campaign, or is there, like, if certain allies are around?
Yeah, so if you have the sledge when you get here and you have Alaya, that blocks a frost.
Okay.
If you take the dynamite out of here and Cookie's still alive, that blocks a frost. And if you take the miasmic crystal out of here, that blocks frost. So from that standpoint, you could leave the sledge behind because it's done its campaign work at this point.
Mm.
Now maybe you still want the sledge if you're doing a heavy item build, but
Or
And
desperately
now because we
want
talked
1
about Cookie,
XP.
I'm just imagining the sledge is called the Cookie Cart.
Wow. The cookie carter.
I guess like I prioritize the mineral specimen because it lets someone investigate at skill of 5 with deduction and cancels frost. So like that's just an incredible asset. And the green soapstone is like 4 vicious blows, so that's really good. And the crystal blocks Tekalilis, and then the other ones are like I don't think they're bad, but you kind of need you can make them work, but you want to have a plan for them rather than just throw them in. Like you can play the dynamite and it gives you 2 dynamite blasts, but if you're not ready to use 2 dynamite blasts, if you're not ready to soak the damage from that, it's probably just in your way.
And this is also one where it's like, in terms of resolution, like it's get out, it's get to the top. Like we're nothing else to even kind of aim for.
Yeah. There are like a couple. So the main conceit is that you can't move up till your location is cleared of clues.
Yep.
And so in theory, that means you're getting a VP for every location you cleared. There are treacheries that are going to drop clues back onto your location. And so, if your fighter's lagging behind, there becomes a question of, is someone going back to get those clues for VP?
Sure.
It has been a minute
That's
since
the question.
Yeah. It's been a hot minute since I've played this in I don't know that I've ever played it in 4-player. I think I've only played it in 3-player. Like a lot of the treacheries are nasty when you're sharing a location. Am I remembering that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right,
I think this is all leading me to help my design of my deck, where I'm going to be the main clover yet again, which is totally fine.
If you want to switch off, you let me know. We always
I was
just
gonna say
like
I have no problem playing Clover.
It's all cool. Like, I mean, yeah, maybe just you and I talk, but
Sean not on Clover though.
yeah, no,
No
just,
clue, Sean. No.
yeah.
I am flex
No,
only.
I mean, we can talk about it later, but the main clover should also have that. I discover clues at other locations
Sure.
as well, like
Yeah.
that flexibility. I think that comes into play in a lot of scenarios in this game or in this campaign. Sorry.
And just for the fact that there's so much like movement and map exploration, like even that adds value to those cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I was trying to get this pulled up in TTS, but it's failing me at the moment. I want to pull up some of the treacheries. I think Avalanche is the one that's like sticking in my memory. Is that one pretty nasty?
Mm-hmm.
Avalanche is if the level of your location is 1 to 4, move to the location directly below you. Then test willpower X. X is the level of your location. If you fail, repeat this process. If you do not move by this effect, Avalanche gains Surge. Gross.
That one's not great. I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Are there any that affect everyone at your location? Because that's kind of the thing, is that this scenario bottlenecks you into a very narrow set of locations.
There are 3.
Not the one.
4 if you count through the ice. So there's Whiteout, Antarctic Wind, and Polar Vortex are all.
Okay,
and
so all the
ice
standard
are all
attached
attachments.
ones. Yeah. Okay. I don't know what I was thinking of. So it's not the worst it could be. And the enemies in this scenario, if I'm remembering correctly, outside of the Terror of the Stars, are all fine, fairly easily manageable. The constricting elder thing, if I'm remembering correctly, like scales with your level. Is that right? Does he get health? Does he get damage? He gets health.
Health equal to your level.
Yeah, here, I'll actually pull some.
It's just really fun to run down the mountain and kill the enemy.
Yes. All right.
Now, I forget the
You could
rule.
fly down there in the cookie cart and pew, 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 pew.
Yeah. I forget the ruling on this. A treachery that adds a frost token to the chaos bag in the middle of the game. Does that stay in the chaos bag forever? Oh my god.
Yeah, those are not great. Those are not great.
Yo, hypothermia, hey?
Yup. It's wait, hypothermia, is that the one in this one? Yes.
The revelation, yeah. Test 3 willpower. If the level of your location is 4 or 5, reveal 1 additional chaos token for the skill test. If you fail, either add 1 frost token to the chaos bag, or take 1 horror for each point you failed by. So I mean, there is mitigation there, but I think that's like treachery cancellation in this campaign also seems really good because like one bad hypothermia affects your chaos bag for the rest of the campaign.
Yeah.
And even from the beginning of Iron Man ideas, like Dunwich, Carcosa level 1, like Iron Mans, which seem so simple now.
Or even like someone running high willpower and just let me handle this or something.
Yeah, like it just, we need to think of so many different aspects and different scenarios and all these different things. And it just, I love this
Honestly,
game for how complicated it gets.
now that I'm looking at them again, it seems like taking horror is the alternative to adding frost tokens on these treacheries in most cases. So perhaps we just pack a ton of horror healing, so that way whenever someone draws it, they're safe to take the horror, tank the horror, and we don't worry about the frost token.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. From the beginning of Iron Man, we've always made a priority of making sure the bag is healthy,
Yes,
as healthy as it can be.
Chaos bag hygiene is entirely appropriate for an Iron Man run.
Because we're gonna do for like 40 to 50 pulls per scenario. So when you make that chaos bag as healthy as you can, you make your campaign as healthy as you can.
Yeah.
It's a great public service announcement, Scott. So speaking of the complexity that's added question here, and the like half joking, half not. So the bell at Iron Man at BusterCon.
Mm-hmm.
It's there for when you get those awful tentacle pulls. Like some people ring it every time they get a tentacle. Others, like I am of the philosophy of every time it's like a real notable one, so I've got a good story for the book.
Yeah.
What's our opinion or thought on frost tokens in the bell?
I mean, I think the spirit of the bell and the tome is anytime the chaos bag wrecks your day. Normally, that's a tentacle. Sometimes that's an errant elder thing. And I quite imagine during Edge of the Earth that will be like, oh my god, I can't believe right now is when I pulled 2 frost tokens. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's absolutely appropriate given the spirit of the tome.
Yeah. Agreed.
I did see one person suggest that we have a snow globe next to the bell. So anytime they failed by frost, they just shake the snow globe.
That's not a bad idea.
I mean, it's a bad idea because somebody's going to throw that thing across the room. Sean's going to throw that thing across the room.
All right.
Say his name.
Yes. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. To me, the idea of the bell, and I think we need to not reinforce this, but like we need to tell people this. The bell is for when the tentacle really, really fucks you.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're going to investigate your 3-on-2 on some random location. Who the fuck cares? You draw the tentacle. Oh no! Like I was gonna fail anyways.
Yeah.
Is it worth a bell ring? I don't know. Is it worth going to the tome of the tentacle? Maybe, sure, but like that the bell is like I was 8 up on this evade test that would prevent this enemy from attacking all 4 investigators.
If I
And
was
there's one token
Mhm.
when you're in one token territory, and it just wrecks you.
Yeah.
If I
You
was
ring that
you
bell.
who like called it at one point and was like, I think I'm about to go sign the book.
My first elder fail or auto fail of the con. I was playing with the LARP guy, and I had like 2 watch this's, and it was a up by 8 evade, and I just stared him in the face and said, "I'm about to go ring the bell." Pulled out the auto fail.
Oh boy.
Well, I just have one more comment on the book and bell, and then we'll get back to actual planning. But I am so excited to look back at that book again now that it's been a little over a year, and just go back and be like, oh yeah, I remember that happening to somebody, or like that was mine, or like I remember reading that little blurb and oh yeah, that would have sucked.
Yeah. Okay.
I do like McDog's his group. He was with
It was Morton and I think
Morton.
Was
Patrick.
that Jorts?
Yeah, that was Team Jorts, I believe.
Yeah, it was Team George for sure. And I remember Morton walking up to the bell, and they saved it all for after they finished the scenario. And he just started doing like ding, 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 and everyone kind of looked up, and he was like ding, 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 and he like looked everyone in the eye, and just kept on ringing the bell 17 times. And it was like, oh shit!
Yeah, it was
Well, and
perfect.
I didn't know he was on his way to ring it 17 times, but I remember like seeing him walk over. I'm like, Morton's kind of like,
He's on a
it
mission.
was almost like a one-man procession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bro's got purpose. For anyone who's
Oh.
unsure what the hell we're talking about, we should probably back that
Yeah.
up for a quick second. At BusterCon, we have a special guest book, and it is the Tome of Tentacles. And as mentioned, anytime a test or the Chaos Bag otherwise fucks up your day, you go and you sign the book, and generally people do some kind of blurb as to what happened. And then we have a bell, which I will grab.
And this book is like this giant tome. We have a bunch of different colored Sharpies, so you can kind of like draw out the scenario, or you can describe it however you feel. And then there is this bell.
And we have
Well-
our bell that we put next to the book, and of course you get to ring it after you've signed the book. And I'm looking
Where's
at it right now. There are so many little nicks from this thing getting hit at the first BusterCon. It's so I love it. I love it.
And Sean, what does the bell say
The bell says,
engraved on it?
"Send not to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee."
And I believe that is the flavor text from the final card of Doomed,
Yes.
which is from some poem, I'm sure, or story. Yeah.
If anybody wants to see the book, by the way, we did take a video of it after BusterCon. It's out on our YouTube channel, so we flip the pages and then you can pause and get an idea of it. But it's a lot of fun. So anyway, I'm very excited about that. We will continue to go down the rabbit hole if we keep going. So let's go back to Ironman planning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not
so
just Iron Man, that's any scenario you're playing anytime during BusterCon. Anyways.
rounding
It's
it back,
better than
frost
every
tokens.
gimmicky wedding guest book you've ever seen.
Yes, it's
It really is. Yeah.
it's great. Okay, so Forbidden Peaks. What have we yet to say? Any other like big decision points here?
So as we've noted, whoever adds each supply to their deck gets 1 XP for it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be the person who lugged that supply up the mountain. And I think that's particularly worth shouting because of that treachery hanging on the edge. Which is test agility 3. If you fail, take 2 damage. Lose control of each expedition asset you control, placing it at your location, and move to the location directly below you. So the damage and the move, that's going to affect everyone. But if you've spent 5 actions picking up assets,
You're
and
now
then
behind.
you fail that agility test, you have to pick up those 5 things again. Maybe that means you have your people with better agility do more of the picking up because they're more likely to pass it, or
Yeah.
maybe it just means you're spreading that out amongst the teams so that the impact is only a pickup or 2 on the move, instead of Norman Withers picked up 5 assets and drew that treachery, and that's 5 pickup actions that you're not getting back.
Norman could cancel it though.
Yeah.
So. No, but yeah. No,
Yeah, but his hands are full. He can't play the card to cancel.
can't actually cast the spell. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep.
Be aware of that guy. That's my terrifying treachery for this scenario.
Yeah, that's a good call out. And like,
There's 3 copies of it too.
yeah, I mean, I think what we learned from that is spread the assets out so that if anyone gets hit by it, it's not like devastating. And then the higher agility people should maybe be the ones schlepping the items a little bit more heavily. All right. Well, I think that takes us to the City of the Elder Things, does it not?
Mm.
And
I love that scenario.
it possibly is my favorite in the campaign. It's exactly what I want out of a Mountains of Madness scenario. Now, I think the biggest thing to think about, though we don't exactly have a lot of control over it outside of, I guess, plot armor, but the map looks different based on what partners you have left up to this point.
Hmm.
Do you guys have a preferred map that you'd like prefer to see? Because not only does the map change, but also the encounter sets used changes as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like something you could shoot for, but like, is there a configuration you'd prefer to see? I was looking at this when I was prepping for my my current solo campaign, and I think. Oh, go ahead.
So version 1 is kind of like a windmill,
Mm-hmm.
like 4, 4, 4, 4 around the center or around the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
Version 2 is a pyramid with the tunnel at the top. And then version 3 is hidden peaks in reverse,
Yeah.
going down to the tunnel.
And I think version 3 is just the one I like least, if I'm remembering correctly, because it's got both penguins and shoggoths.
Mm.
Okay.
And that can be a really bad time. Do all of them have shoggoths? No, version 2 does not have the shoggoth set. That has like more elder things.
I feel like version 2, you discover half the clues from the starting location, but otherwise, like, the bag and your deck stays clean. Like, you
Oh,
don't get
right.
weaknesses, and there's no frost tokens.
Yeah, there's a chaos token add for
If you get the passage, what is it? Passage blocked. One.
both 1 and 2 have a setup 1 and 2 have an elder thing that gets added, but setup 3 does not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think setup 3. Nope, it doesn't. One of these has a frost in them. Setup 2 has a frost at the first act flip. So if you're looking
Sure.
at bag health, version 2's not the best. Version 2 is the worst, in fact.
And
Hmm.
version 2 is if Danforth, Takata, and Elia win the vote. So given that they're probably... Yeah, I'm just going to be bold. I'm sorry if I'm tromping on anyone's bays here, but I'm going to imagine that there aren't too many people who are like desperate to save any of those ones. Takata is probably the most redeemable of the bunch. But yeah.
My team name is The Real Friend Was the Anu we picked up on the way. So
Exactly
that might
right.
inform you as to how we feel about Elia.
I
Maybe
wanna
the real
see that.
treasure was the Anu. Yeah.
I want to see that on a t-shirt.
So okay, so then setup aside, you've got a bunch of different things going on for setup.
Mhm.
I am most thrilled to play this scenario 4-player. Like all the other
Yes.
ones I know are going to scale weird, but this one I'm very excited to see how 4-player goes with this because it's got so many of
This
the
one-
like
Yeah.
traversal puzzle mechanics that I just really adored about it.
You open up the map, you get a bunch of clues, you fly across the map based on clue things. Like,
You use the stone archways to teleport.
Yeah.
Stone bridge
Mhm.
teleports.
yeah. Like, it's a super fun scenario in 4-player. In 4-player, I think it is the best.
Awesome.
I think yeah. Like, I'm excited to play it. And absolutely destroy it.
Yeah. So scenario 2 version 2 is pretty cool for map movement because it's this big hill shape, and when you teleport using clues, you can teleport from the bottom left to the bottom right, and kind of zigzag across as you go up if you want. Version 1 is the big square, so moving around is easy. Version 3 is that staircase that is a lot harder to kind of move back up quickly unless your stone bridges pay off or you have open gate or something.
Man, the amount of times that I end up with like those stone ridges like right next to each other is a stupid amount of times.
Good action move, right? Good action move. Version 3 does have the benefit of, I guess they all have a benefit on the second act, because you're spending two types of symbols to advance the first act, and then you can spend that third type to get a special thing that's different depending on the version. And I don't like version 1's. It's like heal a damage into horror and a trauma. And version 2's is clear your deck of Tekalilis, which I think is really powerful. Clear everyone's deck of Tekalilis or something.
It's like pretty good.
It's very strong. And version 3's is remove the Elder Thing token from the bag. So, and that guy is like -4 if you're failing. Enemies are attacking you, you're adding Doom. So, I hate 3's map, but I love 3's effect.
I think I'm kind of hoping for 3 myself. That's Dyer, Claypool, and Cookie. But I imagine 1 will actually probably be the most prominent winner amongst those doing plot armor, because that is Kensler, Ellsworth, and Sinya? I'm never quite sure how to pronounce her last name. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean those are the ones we're trying to save for plot and mechanical reasons, so.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean,
of course, you can just kill off your teammates to get the version you want.
True, that is a strategy. You can kind of rig the vote in that very macabre way. Yeah, I'm just looking through the locations again. God, I'm excited to play this 1-4 player. This is gonna be the highlight of this Ironman.
This is gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So that said, Sean, what happens if something goes really askew and we're running real late? Is this one? I forget the resolutions on this. Is this one where
I don't think there's any shortcuts in this one.
No.
This is one of the only ones where like you're playing the full thing. This one and Heart of Madness. Well, even Heart of Madness you can technically cut in half. It's just a lot harder.
What you can do is like play fast to doom out.
Yeah.
Dooming out does not defeat you here.
That's what I'm wondering.
Got it.
I mean, I don't want to do that. I want to play the crap out of this one. It's the thing I'm looking forward to most that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pseudonym. There are very few. I think you meant very few opportunities to resign early in Edge of the Earth, and yeah, that's my experience as well. Oh man, I love the art in this scenario. All right, I'm just getting lost admiring my favorite scenario in the campaign. Someone say something smart.
Justin, what you got?
Ooh. Well, depending on which version of this we get, from this point onward, what are our options for removing frost tokens from the bag? Like if for some reason we decide as we're digging in a little more, we decide we want to do version 2 and we said we got a frost token, so the bag hygiene isn't there. What are our options for the rest of the campaign for removing a frost token, or is this late enough in it that it's the juncture where if you do 2, bag hygiene is down, but maybe the rest is good?
Bag hygiene actually gets really good at the end.
Yeah.
Because it's the same 16 locations every time you play this scenario, no matter which version. And one of those is the cylindrical tower. Spend 2 -2 keys and pull 2 frost out of the bag. That's your target for bag health. I think almost more than other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then whenever you visit Claypool during the Restful Night interludes, he can snatch one out. assuming he hasn't died. Man, I am so sorry to every team who loses Claypool in the airplane crash. Like, I understand why people are considering giving him the plot armor. Like, I'm gonna vote for
Yeah.
Kensler, but I get it if you want to give Claypool the plot armor.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about that because it seems like if we can do most of the stuff we'd like to, the bag hygiene will be pretty good. And what I'm hearing is one of the main downsides to 2 as the option here would be the frost token. But if we're at the point that we can kind of mitigate that, then that might push a decision one way or the other.
Well, the decision's made before this point too, so there's only so much you can do to guide it outside of just like straight up killing partners.
And I think if you decide right and you still have Claypool alive, you can actually enter Heart of Darkness with no frost tokens in your bag.
That sounds right.
So like bag hygiene is there. So
It's also worth pointing out, like, you know, we're talking like we're afraid of frost tokens, and rightfully so, because the time I did this with 8 frost tokens, I beat the game, and it was a nail biter. Like, it's not easy when you have 8. 1 frost token is nothing. Like,
Yeah.
agreed.
it's a rolling -1. It can't
Yeah.
even chain into itself.
Yeah.
2, not that bad. I think when you go from 3 to 4 is when it's like you have Daisy's Necronomicon out. Like, that's, Fylion did the math, and like that's the similar probability shift. So think of all the times you're happy to have Daisy walking around with 2 autofails in the bag. That's your 3 to 4 mark. So staying 3 or below is good space.
You're going to finally get your question from me. Remind me what the Necronomicon does.
Oh, so Daisy's Elder Sign is +1, draw a card for every tome you have in play. So you look at your play area, and you see all your tomes, and you count up your old book of lore, and your encyclopedia, and your medical texts, and your book of shadows, and then you see the Necronomicon, which says treat every Elder Sign you reveal as if it were the autofail. And you go, great, I'm not drawing cards, I'm failing.
Okay.
So the 2 frost tokens, that would be 1 out of 18-ish times 1 out of 17. 500.
Scott, are you doing hypergeometrics live right now?
No, I'm just looking like 2 frost tokens is a 3% chance of auto failure.
Yeah, seems about
3%,
right.
3%, right? That doesn't include the auto fail, which probably pushes that up to like 6 or 7%. But we're talking about less than 10%, I think, with 2 frost tokens. So
yes, well,
and if you have the Claypool ally, you blank a bunch of that anyways.
Yeah, like
I appreciate
frost tokens.
what y'all are saying in theory, but as someone who is categorically allergic to good luck,
Yeah, Sean, I'm looking at 2 frost tokens in Sean math.
yes,
And that is a
let's do Sean math.
56% chance of failure. Yeah. Like, I think bag health is very important in this campaign as far as frost tokens go, but I don't think it should be like an absolute deal breaker for other things. I think it's something you should be aware of, and I think that you should visit Claypool as often as possible to avoid issues where bag health gets out of control. But otherwise,
but if you're running between like 2 and 4 frost, you're probably going to be pretty okay.
But like 4 is where I start to
4
get,
is
like,
where I
yeah.
I start to get slightly uncomfortable. But like 1 to 2, nothing. 3, 4, I'm like,
yeah.
And like 5 up now I'm like, what did we do wrong?
Yeah.
Like, Claypool jumped out of the airplane. Oh, okay, that's
well, and that's why I'm bringing it up now is I feel like it's a thing that because at the low levels of it, it's very easy for us to be like, it'll be fine, and then in the heat of the moment, it's okay. Well, we'll have to do that. I just want us to. It's not our main priority.
Oh, we got to keep
I
an eye
do-
on it though.
We got to keep an eye on it.
One thing about bag health, sorry, I think we completely skipped this part. The prologue. We want to believe.
Oh, right. We did skip the prologue.
I think we want to add the cultist, not the tablet. So we want to believe and convince Dyer to allow the expedition.
That's
And
usually
why
my
do we want to
go-to.
do that?
That's just it's whether we add a cultist or a tablet. The cultists across the scenarios, I'll read them out. It's like -2, -2, -1, -2, -1, a bunch of if you fails. The tablet is -3. It's -3 the entire way.
Across the
Okay.
board.
Yeah, I feel like the cultist is just a better choice.
Yep. I think I would tend to agree.
So you believe?
I do
you believe? I believe. Okay.
I want to believe.
That's the line. Damn it, I fucked it up. Okay. So then moving on from City of the Elder things. I'm trying to remember if there are any like big resolution pieces on City.
Oh, there's a thing going into City.
Oh, sure, yeah, let's talk about
worth
that then.
mentioning, which is it checks for Mala and Dyer being in your party, and if they're not in your party, for each of them you get a weakness added. Every player gets a weakness added to their deck.
You get
So that's
frostbite,
frostbitten and possessed.
possessed.
And those are they go into your threat area. You can heal them as if they are damage and horror. And while they are in your threat area, if you reveal a frost, you have to either take a damage or horror, depending on the type, and you either have to take that or automatically fail the test just for drawing a frost token. So those are like hard to avoid, because you're trying to avoid them. You have to keep both those partners alive, and you're probably better served just running some multi-purpose healing, especially when we talk about how much horror is coming from choices to not add frost tokens. Like,
yes.
this is, and we were all saying this as we saw the player cards 3 years ago. Healing is good suddenly. This is where we start healing. This is where Earthly Serenity came out. This is the year Hallowed Mirror 3 came out and returned to TCU. So pack that healing in for this campaign.
Carolyn
and then these weaknesses don't hurt so much.
Yeah.
That is one thing I appreciated about this campaign is as a career support / healer in all group games. This is the first campaign where I was like, yeah, I can actually do it here.
And of course, the great irony is if you lose Dyer, he can't heal Possessed from you anymore. And if you lose Cinna, she can't heal Frostbitten from you anymore.
Oh, I never clocked that. That's cool. I dig that.
Now, her medical kit can heal that, but...
Yeah.
It's too bad we don't have like a general healer. Like we have Carolyn for Psych and... what's his name?
Vincent.
Sawbones guy.
Vincent.
Seeker for...
Vincent.
For damage, but we don't have like someone who's just like a general support healer-ish person who's dedicated to that, like on their investigator card. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But
Let's say any given guardian could go that way.
Yeah, Sean, you're looking at me like, what the hell?
No.
I mean, Carolyn could go that way. I think, like dedicated support and Clover. Like, I think that's a super viable build right now. But
and Vincent has decent what is Vincent's guardian access outside of things that heal? Is it just 5 level zeros, or does he have like 0 to 2? I can never remember.
It's like 15 0 to 1 guardian and survivors.
That's right. He has the Carolyn thing where it's
right.
Okay. That's decent. Yeah, I mean the point carries that like healer support has a place in this campaign for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Now hopping to like the end resolution pieces on City. What is there to be said there? I mean, it's just there's like 2 resolutions, right? It's not that intense. Like you either find the hidden tunnel on your own or you don't.
Mhm. Find that tunnel, I guess.
Oh, you get 1 XP per pair of keys you spent. So even if spending the keys has like extremely marginal in-game effect,
Mm.
it's an XP, and like your XP isn't coming from victory on locations; it's coming from the keys. So,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So when you find that location that removes 2 frost for spending keys, you want to spend those keys.
yeah, I mean you want that one anyways. But
Yeah.
even the dinky little one that's like
Like the -1s.
reveal 3 locations and discover a clue at each of them. Like that's a terrible effect, especially when the map's entirely revealed. But it's an XP.
Yeah. I'll throw out there though, in 4-player Ironman, if you reveal a bunch of locations and there's 4 clues on each, and you reveal 1 off of each of them, I find that there are great clue solutions for 1 clue, obviously, 2 clues, 3 clues, but 4 clues is where it kind of
Yeah.
like if you're the cluever, like suctioning up 4 clues takes more effort than 2 or 3.
Yeah, it is interesting how it kind of delineates that way.
Mm-hmm. Like
Yeah.
your upgraded seeker stuff, it's like, oh, discover 3 clues instead of 2. It's like, well, what if I'm playing 4-player? It's like, well, hope you have a deduction.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hope you
you
have some other chump running around grabbing 1 clue at a
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
or
So
you have
just
deduction level 2. Now I'm wasting a clue, right? Like it just, yeah.
yeah.
This might be the soul clution you've been looking for.
How long
it
have
is.
you had that in the? Was that off the cuff or did you have that in the chamber?
That was when he said solution and we were talking about clues. You know, these things just come to me.
You know, it's magic. Okay, so moving on then to the finale, the Fiend. Let me recall that and put down Heart of Madness. I suppose we have an interlude in between, but I don't know if there's anything specific to be said about that interlude that doesn't apply to all the other ones too.
Nothing.
Yeah.
No.
Talk to your partners. Play Fatal Mirage if you want.
Mhm.
But
I guess very quickly, like at those interludes, you want to talk to Ken's. You get to talk to 3 or
Yeah.
4, depending on if you succeeded or failed. If you failed, you get the 4. You want to talk to Kensler for the story. You want to talk to Claypool probably to get rid of a Frost. And then, like, you can be healing some trauma or starting with extra cards or resources.
yeah. I think it depends on your investigator layout, and also like how many Tekalili cards you have. All these
Yeah.
things, like it's so group dependent. Like I think you're right, Fi, that it's Kensworth for the ultimate success, and then Claypool if you still have him for getting rid of Frost,
Yeah.
if you have Frost, and then after that it's
Actually, that's probably where you then go to your whoever just died and you pick up their gear. Because those gear
Yeah.
assets are really good. Like,
Yeah.
Dire Sketches is a fast Preposterous Sketches.
Mhm.
Takata's is a fast E-Cache. The boots are like a better hiking boots.
Mhm.
So, grab those. If Kensler's dies, her log is fast deduction investigates.
Mhm.
So, and if Elia dies, you get a dog. So go there.
Yes.
Yes, we will.
Yeah.
All right. So, Heart of Madness. We've got our finale set up. We've got rings on rings. There's just 2 rings, right? Am I remembering the map correctly?
There's 3 rings.
There's 3 rings.
Yeah.
Yep, totally. Spokes and rings. Does anyone else like constantly fuck up the hunter keyword when they're playing this scenario?
Yes.
I know I do.
Yeah. Yes. Like what's connected to what is just.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, it makes sense when I look at it, and then when I go to do the hunter thing,
Yeah.
it suddenly doesn't make.
I got to count it out every time. And I can only imagine, and again, I've never played Edge full 4-player, so like when suddenly you're calculating who's the closest investigator to any given hunter, like it's
Oh,
gonna
it's
take us a
nuts.
minute.
Yeah, especially when we all plan to spread out.
Yeah,
Do we plan that? Oh,
probably.
yeah.
Okay.
You know what?
well,
I bet for the sake of at this point to avoid brain burn, I bet we can have something similar to what they have for the diagram in here, but on the board.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean it's.
Oh.
Go ahead.
If I had to figure this out when I played a small table. If you want to do something that's not as visually cool but is technically correct, you just do a 3x5 grid
Mm.
on the table, because that's actually what this is, and you do it
And the
Pac-Man
ends are
rules, so you
connected
go
to each
off.
other.
You can go off the edge,
and you can
and
Pac-Man.
then
Yeah,
your center location just goes at the top, and it's connected to everything on the top.
That's a really good point.
that is a good point.
And with the size of the tables at the game center, that might actually be what we have to do.
I think that's a better.
Mm.
I think.
Well,
yeah.
when I
that
am putting
works.
this together on the puzzle boards, I will be pinging you to help talk me through that.
I am so excited to see those.
It's a 3x5 grid, and the sides of the grid connect to each other.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's. Yeah. No, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, like I'm sorry. I'm in TTS, like actually seeing this visually for myself. I have to get hands on something before I can visualize it. But yeah, like. Oh yeah, sorry for everyone at home who also wants to see what I'm doing. Let me switch to the right thing here.
Isn't this more like this? And this goes here? Because all of these along the top row are connected here.
Yep.
Right? All of these are connected adjacently. And this side are connected to each other.
Okay. Yep.
By
Interesting.
that blue light.
That's a lot. That's a lot easier for my brain to handle, for sure.
Holy moly, that is so much better.
Pro tip.
Yeah.
Pro tip. This is why we brought you on, Fi.
Gentlemen, I apologize. I need to go. My my partner is sick.
It's all good.
And they need my help with children.
Go do
Any
that.
closing thoughts, Scott?
Get rid of Frost. Everything else is secondary. The final scenario, if you can have someone who can hump agility into the double digits, is fantastic.
Okay.
True.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Last time I played through this scenario, I had a Rita as a partner, and Rita does agility really well, and Rita did really fantastic. I'm really angry at Ian for having played Rita in a different Ironman, so that we can't play Rita again.
Oh, don't you
But-
worry, friend. I am eyeing
I know.
Kaimani with like
I know,
with loving intent.
I know. And Sean, don't forget, you get 5 XP. at the start.
I always will. I will always forget that Kaimani gets extra XP.
Me too. Mateo gets 5 XP. No one else does. That's the rule, right?
I can dude, the last time or before you go real quick, the last time I played Kaimani was in a TFA campaign, and I took in the thick of it.
Hey, here's the thing. In the thick of it, might not be terrible though in Kaimani, because what is Janae 4 XP now or
6.
5?
No, 5.
Five.
Yeah, 5.
Uh,
It used to be
That's
6
too
for the
bad.
pair.
yeah. So I mean, like even with Kaimani, you might actually. Do you take? Yeah, you take one Jean or Janae.
I'm
And then-
debating between Delilah and Janae at the moment, but we'll see how the rest of the team squares away.
We can chat. We can chat.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Bye,
Okay.
Scott.
All right. Bye,
you, friends.
Scott.
We'll see you in
Bye.
a week for a recording.
Oh yeah, okay. I was about to say, hang on. That's not how the
No,
Buster.
yeah.
That's not how the
I'm not
Buster
flying
Con
in in
math
a week.
maths.
Yeah. I'll see you in like 2 months.
He,
Yeah.
he, he
No, a
shows up
month.
at he shows up at the
A
door, and
month.
you and I have to host him back and forth for a month.
I mean, I'm into it.
Okay, a month. I'll see you in a month.
See you in a month, baby.
Okay, bye.
Bye, buddy.
Bye. Okay. All right. Well, now that we have that,
This still just blows my. Before we move on, Sean, this
Yeah.
still just blows my mind because I am as you know, I am a words person, not a math, geometry, visual, anything person, and so I'm just like, no, I kind of get it. but
Yeah.
dear God.
mm-hmm. It bends
Well
my
done.
brain.
Well done, Five. Well done.
Yeah, like it bends my brain, but suddenly this makes more sense.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah, the first time I played this, I was on a three by three table, so I did not have the space for anything.
So-
But just how can I keep this mathematically equivalent?
necessity is indeed the mother of invention. Okay. Well, then talking strategy and decision points for Heart of Madness. What kind of generally do we have here? We've got we got the whole thing where we're charging up the seals, obviously. Is there anything really to be said beyond that?
Don't end the world.
Yeah. God, what is that? Is that on the act? Don't cross the streams.
Agenda, I think.
Yeah, it's on the agenda. If 2 or more activated seals are at the same location, do not cross the streams. Cats and dogs living together. Pandemonium. Or sorry, mass hysteria is the line. God. All right. But yeah, I think this is a fairly straightforward scenario other than that, right?
Yeah, it's kind of the culmination of Edge of the Earth in the other ways we've talked about. Like, it's hard to plan for because I can look at the seals and tell you some I think are better than others, but
Yeah.
you can't go for those seals because it's entirely dependent on
Where they land.
how many clues do you have when you find the dormant seal. Did the person who can find that particular seal find it? Did you find the activation spot remotely early? Like it all. Now it's somewhat easier in 4-player because you can split up, but it's hard to plan for this. You just got to play some good Arkham.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. I always forget that in addition to clues, there's like an additional cost to grab each seal. So there's like resources here.
Yeah.
There's a willpower test here. No, that's to activate it. Willpower test here.
Yes. So each of the seals is test 2 in an attribute and spend 1 per investigator clues to pick up the seal, and then test 3 in that same attribute at least, and then spend 1 per investigator clues again to activate it. So at least it's consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the 5th seal that you mentioned, which is you
Resources.
spend money and then you spend cards.
Got it.
So yeah, it's tough to plan for anything.
Yeah.
Like the Hall of the Sunless Sea is for the Trident seal, and that's discard 8 cards from people's hands. Like that's probably doable, but make sure you get 8 cards worth of people at that location when you find it. Yeah.
Ugh.
I guess maybe the question is like, what's the best? Or if you have to sacrifice a seal, which one would you sacrifice? Like if you can only get 4.
Do you have opinions?
I want to hear yours first, but I guess that depends on part 2.
Yeah, I suppose. God, I don't know that I have a strong. Oh, I always forget Library of Costs. Some say Cosm.
Some say Cosm.
I don't know. Like it's so group dependent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I have played through this campaign before, but I think every time I look at Heart of Madness, it feels like the first time I'm looking at it. And I'm at least showing the chat or I'm showing the stream everything that I'm looking at. But yeah, sorry, ask the question again because now I've forgotten it.
It's a part 2 question.
Mhm.
And like which seals would you prioritize if you got short on time and you could only activate some of them?
Sure. And part
Because
two,
you're supposed to activate them, or you try to activate them all in part 1.
yeah,
And then you can activate them in part 2, but like that's a long ways out of your way to go to turn them on. So you might as well just power through and finish.
yeah. It's almost more trouble to get them activated in part 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember what each of them do in part 2. That is not something I have readily available in my mind.
Yeah. So 1 reduces the shroud of each missed pylon by 2. 1 cancels a damage in a horror every time people take damage in horror at a missed pylon. 1 drops each enemy's fight and evade by 2. While at a pylon, 1 does an extra damage every time you damage a missed pylon, and 1 boosts all your skills by 1 again when you're at a missed pylon.
Mm-hmm.
So boost your skills, make everything easier, survive more, and accelerate.
I mean, the accelerate seems generally like one of the better ones, right?
Yeah. The accelerate makes the whole scenario go faster, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
And dropping the shroud means it's easier to fight and investigate them, which means you can move on more easily.
Yeah.
And I guess dropping the strengths of the enemies means that the Nameless Madness are now closer to trivial to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the 3 I would pick given the option.
I'm trying to even remember like where do they get those abilities? Is it
that comes up in part 2 when you find the missed pylons.
Got it, it's in Mist Pylons. Yep. Got it. Interesting.
I guess the thing to do here is before the campaign, standardize with your teammates on what you're calling the seals. Because
Fair.
they have no names.
Mm-hmm.
FFG didn't name them; they just stuck them in the box. And I wouldn't say they're similar, but I would say if you haven't standardized with your team what the names are, you're gonna confuse each other on the day.
Mm-hmm. So I've got Trident.
Mm-hmm.
I've got Snaky Boy.
Which one is?
Oh yeah, see, what's that?
Okay, so Snaky Boy is the one that looks like an S for snake. E-boy.
Okay, with like kind of an equal sign in the middle.
No, just the one that's like a straight long. Where are they? They're
like
here.
It looks like a fishhook.
Yeah, sure, fishhook.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that one looks like a fishhook to me.
See, it looks like a snake. Like, all right, hang on. Let's pull these out.
I can see it now that you've said it.
Let's do this. Okay. All right. Trident is easy. Like that is like an archetypal symbol that is already in existence.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Triple scoop. Anyone else want a triple scoop?
I was gonna call it coffee mug.
Sure. Yeah.
I call it Tankmar because it looks like a elven character from Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah. Okay. Sure. I see that now. Coffee cup. Okay. Yep. Big Kahuna's backing you up there. Wishbone.
I could go with Wishbone on that. I want to call it the statues in Elden Ring, the little forked thing they swing. It looks exactly like that weapon.
Oh yeah. The imp thing. Yeah.
Yep. But Wishbone, I could go with that.
Yep. Look,
I
lacrosse
saw someone
stick
call that
eye.
Man getting hit in groin by football.
Fail blog. Okay, interesting. All right, so then I'm still going to Snaky Boy, but what were the other ones? Fishhook definitely makes sense. I
Yeah.
can see that, like Maui. And then yeah, what are you? You are
I would just call that one equal
yeah.
because I'd focus on the center. It's an
Yeah.
equal sign with extra stuff around it. We all
Horseshoes is
know what it
good.
is.
Horseshoes is
I like
good. I like
horseshoes.
that Big Kahuna. Interesting.
Anyways, nothing's wrong. Just
No, that's a very good point though. Like you
lay it
need
down
common
with your-
language. That's cool.
Okay, so but I want to go back to these because I was only half paying attention to the suggestions there, Fi. So there was the Lord of the Rings one that I don't get the reference. Tell me what you call the other ones.
I got fishhook and football and
Oh,
trident.
okay.
Football.
I used to call the trident Psy, and no one liked my Greek character interpretation. So
Aw. I mean, I appreciate a good Raphael reference as well. That's where I learned what the word psi means in
Yeah.
is
weapons.
that where it comes from?
No, that is
Is
not
that
where
where
it comes from.
And this was Deep Thoughts with Mythos Busters. Sean, you'll appreciate this one. The fishhook one, in my mind, that is actually Bloodborne weapon because I imagine it's like a giant weapon they're swinging, but fishhook is then the one that actually comes out of my mouth. Like I imagine the top of it is a handle and it's all dragging on the ground, and then it's a heavy one, so you take a big
Sure.
ass swing with it.
Yeah, just a big sickle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and by the way,
Alright.
I definitely meant psi. Because that's what they called Raphael's little
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to be clear on spelling. Okay. Yeah, so common language there is good. Yeah, I mean, I think that's you nailed it, Fi, is that like it's so hard to plan because they're in random locations and they require random things that people may or may not have available to them readily at that moment. So like part 1 is kind of just do what you can, right?
I guess my biggest tip for this is, and this goes back to what you guys were talking about at the very start of this stream. Know what these things do going in. Have a sense of what. Maybe you don't have to remember exactly what each symbol does, but have a sense of one of them's going to reduce your shroud, one of them's going to accelerate the damage, so that at the very least, if you can't plan for it, you can at least look at the card quickly and remember, right, this is what we've got here. Try to remember that as best you can, though this is the hardest time in the campaign to do that.
Yep. Okay. Well, part 2 then. Moving on to the big thing going on here, which would be one nameless madness. What would you name the madness? If it was yours to name. Frederick? Stephen? Albert? No.
Wouldn't.
No one's biting on this bit. Okay. So this comes out everywhere and
Sorry, I was muted. I would call it Treebert.
Okay, all right. All right. I love how a couple people in the chat like simultaneously said Bob. That's fantastic. Oh, is that what that reference was? Was that Titan AE?
It's the Bob that ate everything.
All right. Anyway, so Nameless Madness are about there's 2 sections to part 2 if I'm remembering correctly, which is 1 you're still in the main map dealing with these, and then the second one is you've got to run out.
Mm-hmm.
Any particular pointers or I guess we've already talked about like what seals you're going for and what they do, so that's obviously going to guide your hand here, but beyond that, is there any real strategy that you're thinking about?
think the big prep is like have one or two people whose job is to handle the nameless
Yeah.
madness.
Mhm.
And like this is not hard, especially if you think about it, but you do have to think about it. Like make sure someone on the team has the job of every round crushing a combat or agility test.
Yeah. And just
Like
like
it's difficulty
laying
4, but you can't
flat.
just zero pass it. You wanna over succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So just have someone who can do that, who can move with the group to keep everything exhausted and go with that.
Mm-hmm.
You could spread out to try to all put the seals down. I feel like if you do that, everyone's going to go to the wrong spot to place their seals.
Almost guaranteed. Almost
Um,
guaranteed.
And especially because the rhythm of this part is you need the clues to open up a mist pylon, and then you get more clues by investigating the mist pylon So, or you might as well investigate the mist pylon for the clues while your fighter is doing damage. So, you can split up. That won't necessarily make it easier.
Yep.
And it was Pseudonymph in chat said, make sure you take your Doom cards out. Like David Renfield does not work here.
Why you got to pick that one? Why you got to pick that one, Fi?
Just for you.
Yeah, that felt oddly hateful.
Yeah. Luckily, I've been
just drop Amina at this point.
Yes, well, don't get me started on that one. I against my normal flow, I am, like I said, I am heavily looking at Kaimani right now, so I will not be in my normal archetype, and I won't have to worry about Doom cards because that's just not even going to be available to me. But it's a good pull. Why specifically, to those of us who don't remember exactly why that's bad in this one?
Oh, because when you would place a Doom on anything, not just the agent, anything, you have to add a Nameless Madness to the board. And oh god, and you can look at this textual description on Agenda 2, and it is a nightmare to parse. Like terrifying to try to parse their language here.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a pinned comment from some guy called Fylion in the Edge of the Earth channel on the Mythos Busters Discord that says what you're actually doing is spawning a Nameless Madness. You're not spawning it where there is already a Nameless Madness. You're going to spawn it somewhere that's connected to where a Nameless Madness is, and you're going to do that as close to an investigator as you can. So write that down write this card down in language you understand. Bring it to Ironman with you, because if you're trying to parse that raw, you're going to have a bad time.
Instead, spawn one, set aside a copy of Nameless Madness location nearest to an investigator without a copy of the... Yeah, okay, you're right. It is all over the place. Okay.
And yeah, what do these guys do? These guys have big fight, big agility, but they exhaust kind of as a group.
Yeah. As long as you can hit the test hard.
Kaimani's really good for that.
That's kind of my hope. Obviously, you won't be able to do their discard ability because these are elite, but...
Yeah, you don't get your agility added, but you've built into evasion tech all campaigns, so...
Guess what? Okay, well, since we're talking about this, and I'm going to save the majority of this for our podcast episode that we'll talk about it, but I'm looking at it pretty hard. Have you ever played a little card called Suggestion in Kaimani? Do you remember what Suggestion does?
Do. Adds your willpower to it, which doesn't preclude adding your intellect to it.
No, it does not. You're evading at a base 10 before you commit anything, before you have any like Lolas or Janaes on the table. That is where I'm leaning at the moment.
It's like lockpicks, right? Or like good lockpicks. Like you only lose the charge if you don't over succeed.
Correct.
Which you're doing anyways.
Which you're probably going to do because you're swinging at a base 10. So yeah, that's my current build is Suggestion Kaimani.
And if you fail, you got an outlet for it with the bell.
It's true. It's true. And there are 3 charges, so like we should be pretty okay.
Yeah.
Yo, and Big Kahuna and Stealth 3 as a backup as well.
Always
For
still
sure.
3.
And thankfully, the
I
Mythos Busters
forget
hotline.
Stealth 3
like-
can.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I forget Stealth 3. Can somebody remind me?
Yeah, so Stealth level 3 is as a free triggered action, you can evade an enemy, and it gets -2 evade for this evade. If you're successful, you disengage from it. It can't engage you, but it doesn't exhaust, so it could engage someone else. So like you specifically are hiding from it. However, in Kaimani, because Kaimani's ability lets you tag their reaction on any evade, you can just say, okay, I'm going to tag Kaimani's discard ability onto the stealth evade, and I'm getting -2 to the evade, plus I'm adding my intellect, and it just stacks together very, very nicely.
Gotcha. Okay. Nice.
So on top of that, I'm also doing so you remember how like we all thought we were like super smart when we figured out Lola Santiago plus flashlight? I'm now going to do Delilah plus stealth in the situations where I need to do actual damage instead of doing the discard.
And sometimes, if you just reduce the enemy's agility to 0, you can tap Delilah for no money and 2 damage.
Yeah, exactly.
Which just makes it too easier to discard the enemy.
Exactly.
It's one of the most beautiful combos.
I'm very excited. You know, I've more or less made my decision unless someone like really talks me out of it, but I'm excited to run that deck. Okay, anyway, tangent done. Heart of Madness Part 2. So then it's after you advance the act, I believe.
Mhm.
Yep. So then you get the Titanic ramp, and you gotta like get your way out, and then that's the escape, and that's the campaign, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think, if I recall, that the strategy really changes at that point. Like you're still fighting Nameless Madness, you're still kind of like trying to hammer the test and exhaust them on your way out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's this is on the easier end of finales.
Yeah.
We get that 2 years in a row because Innsmouth is also on the easier end.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people skip Heart of Madness Part 1 entirely and then breeze through this anyways.
Sure.
So,
And talking about that decision
like Competent
point.
Arkham.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about that decision point, though, if you decide to do that, what you miss out on is just the charged seals, right?
And a couple XP, yeah.
And some XP.
But yeah, mainly you're giving up your charge seal advantage, which
Yeah.
is not critical.
No, yeah, and depending on how the day's gone and how everyone's decks are working, like it might be a decent shortcut to consider. So I don't know. We'll at least have to ask the question. I can't imagine we'll plan to skip part 1, but it'll be a question.
You got to have your pivot points.
Yeah.
I guess that's a good question. So stepping back a little bit, all of it, with the different potential pivot points. I guess I'll ask you first. Of all the different areas you might have to make some big decisions, which one gives you the most heartburn?
That's a good question.
You came on here for questions from me. I know.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked Fi because I don't have an
That's a
answer.
challenging question. Justin, no one ever stumps me with questions about Arkham. I've always got something to say right away. No, it's probably keys for frost tokens or anything for removing frost tokens cumulative over the game.
Okay.
One frost token that I don't get to block or remove, whatever. It's as they start adding up, and then
As they
the cylindrical
snowball.
tower. I can
What was
just
that?
walk. No. Like the cylindrical tower, the spend your 2/2 keys and remove 2 frost in City of the Elder Things. Like that's one of the most important actions in the game, I'd say, in the campaign.
Okay.
If you're, it brings your frost from 4, which Scott and I think is terrifying or scary, down to 2, which Scott and I think is nothing. So, you want to do that. If it's in the wrong spot, if your keys are in the wrong spot, if the person who's supposed to do that suddenly gets clotheslined by the scenario, that's where I would start to sweat and be like, okay, do we actually need to make this happen? Can we make this happen?
Sure.
What are we cutting instead of that? And the answer to that depends on how many frost tokens I've had to leave in earlier in the day because of other stupid things I couldn't control.
Sure. What about you, Sean? Anything we've talked about where you're like, hey, that's going to be like the pivot point?
The plane crash. Because I know we want to protect Kensler. If we lose Claypool in the plane crash, I'm going to be a very sad boy. If we lose Ellsworth in the plane crash, I'm going to be a very sad boy. Anyone else, I kind of don't care. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Fi on the frost tokens. Like the early on, you really want to fight it hard because the more you let it accumulate, the worse it gets. Beyond that, I'm trying to think. I have, and this is true solo, and this is recently, but I had Ice and Death Part 1 kind of go sideways on me, and that hurt because then Part 2 gets a lot harder. And then I ended up losing in that. So Part 3 is going to be even harder. So
Sure.
I think the overarching theme is like get a handle on it early and don't let it get away from you, because the more you lose, the more you lose. But I guess you could say that
Sure.
about most of Arkham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, how many clues are on that spot? 8 in 4-player?
Which one?
The Crystalline Cavern?
It is 3 per. So it's 12 clues
So
at
12.
5 Shroud.
12 clues at 5 Shroud is no joke,
That's
folks.
really no joke.
That's a lot of intel reports.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we're going to shoot for it. Like, it's going to be primarily, I think, Scott's problem because he's currently playing Harvey. We'll see if he gets Justin to talk about it or to handle it at all. But you gotta, if you're going for Crystalline Caverns, you really got to plan for it. Like, you can't just randomly luck and charm your way into clearing Crystal Caverns. Like, that is a thing as a plan you have to execute on, in my opinion.
I'm gonna throw out there that Lake's Camp, the remnants of Lake's Camp, is 7 shelter.
Mm-hmm.
Has the same number of clues and is only 3 shroud, which is substantially easier than 5.
Mm-hmm.
You're not gonna be able to pivot. So
yeah, exactly. Once you commit to one,
once
you're
you've opened
going
up the caverns, that's where you're going.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And so that's probably one of the early points.
That's one of the big ones.
Is just figuring out where how it's going and then which way you head, because you got like you said, they're spread out enough. You can't pivot. So,
and your camp determines your XP out of the first scenario. It determines your starting resources out of the second scenario. It determines your starting point for the rest of it too. For the rest of Ice and Death. So there's kind of a lot riding on where you're planning to go and how quickly and efficiently you actually execute on that.
And it does also determine where your enemies spawn for Part 3. So, yeah. Have a backup, folks.
Yep. Have plans B and C ready.
Gonna quick do a tangent there. Does anyone else, every time you say have a backup, hear it in the Game of Thrones theme? The have a backup, have a backup, have a backup. From I forget if it was the what would it be, the Emmys or just some late night show or something where they actually had people singing it that way. Every time I watch the show, I actually hear people going, have a backup, have a backup.
That explains
you're welcome.
A great many things, Justin. Now I'm going to hear that when you're talking about plans. I'm like, oh, Justin's got a backup, got a backup.
It just fits with how I'm wired too.
Have a backup if plan A fails.
Well done.
Yeah.
I mean, my backup for this is if something goes sideways, now we have plausible deniability. We can just say Phi told us to do it.
It's true. It's true.
So, I mean, thanks for being the fall guy. Much appreciated.
It's a good thing I'm inconspicuous and no one knows what I look like.
Wait, we're not streaming this on the internet, are we? All right. Well, that's kind of the plan. Well, I mean, that's kind of the considerations. I guess we still have to like draw together our individual team plans. Phi, do you know who you're playing yet? Have you figured out your player deck?
Not a clue. During this call, I have gone from no idea to Bob to Finn to Kaimani to no idea. So.
Yeah. Well, that's somewhat like normally there has to be one person in the team who's like, I'm throwing my stakes down, and then everyone else can start to like plan and pivot. But like someone's got to do it first, and that's always hard.
Well, most of the time I'm playing Arkham with people who don't play as much as me, so I throw it to them and I say, y'all pick what you want to do. I'll fill in the gap on that. I think my whole team is doing that.
Yeah.
I think everyone on my team plays enough that we don't really want to commit right now. We want to see what others do. So,
yeah. Who are you playing with?
I'm with Tika Toy and Something Temporary and Baze.
Okay.
It's 3/4 of our team from last year. Unfortunately, Zorba will not be at the con.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's sad. But yeah, that is one thing I get to look forward to at BusterCon is like normally in my day-to-day life, I'm always the one like trying to get my friends and family to play Arkham and just trying to like tailor the experience and be like, oh, what do you want to do? And doing all that. But like when I show up to BusterCon, I can safely assume I'm the least talented player at any given table. And like that's fun. Like I get to just like play with like really good Arkham players.
Yeah, and there's a sense of like I can run whatever I want, and if it screws up a little, there's probably Slack at the table to help carry through that, or I can don't worry if you want to run some jank. I've got this deck that I know it just works. So it works well.
Excellent. Cool. Well, Phi, thank you again for coming on and talking through this with us.
Thanks.
This was very useful.
Thank you for having me.
Anything you want to plug? Are you still speedrunning Zelda? Is that still a thing?
Oh gosh, I don't speedrun anymore.
Oh, okay.
Ironically, I don't have time for that. I wish I did.
Well, yeah.
If you check out Pax Cecilia's YouTube channel, he is uploading as we very slowly play Return to the Circle Undone, where we put as many tarots in our deck as possible, and then we use moon pendants to give each other 6 or 8 wild icons at a time, and we just commit tons of wilds to tests. It's
what a terrible
it's
strategy.
It's not a good strategy, but we're making it work and we're having a lot of fun with it.
You beat me to it, Sean. You beat me to it.
Pax said years ago to me, I wonder if this is viable. And I said, it's probably viable. And you know what? It's not good, but it's
that's
viable.
all you need, baby. A hope and a prayer.
So that's my plug. If you're at BusterCon, stop by, say hi to me. I'll often be wearing this hoodie, so you can tell who I am. It's Ghost Spider, and I am down to play Arkham, and I'm going to bring my Galaxy Trucker set and teach people who have never played this 17-year-old real-time tile-laying game. And
it is
play
so
with veterans.
good, everyone. So good.
Everyone raves about this. Clearly, I need to finally partake.
It is madness, Sean. It is just like I say this with love toward the game. It is just stupid madness, and I love it.
Okay,
it's the most tightly designed stupid game.
Yes,
it's not even a stupid game. Like it looks like it would be stupid, and it has so much complexity, so much depth. But also, you can just play it as like, what's going to happen to my ship? Let's find out.
How many does it play?
It does up to 5 at a time, and I may not even play. I'll just be running games for newer people, and it's very hot swappable. Like you can do one round and walk away. So come find me on Sunday.
I'm gonna have to now. If I can tear Scott away from, I think the only thing that will tear Scott away from Star Wars CCG is if I offer to play Galaxy Trucker with him. So I think we're safe there. Excellent.
Hey, quick thing since we're talking BusterCon.
Yeah.
I know but people might see this at different times, but I will throw another plug for if anyone is interested in volunteering to help us out with a few things. I mean, mainly we're looking for people to help sit at the front desk so I don't have to be there the whole time, or if you're interested in running an event, we've got the event on the schedule, but we'd love some more people to help with that if possible. But if you're not comfortable with that, no obligation, obviously. But yeah, please feel free to send something to our email, the mythosbusterspod@gmail.com, or just DM me on Discord. But yeah, it's coming up. It's gonna be a good time.
Hell yeah, baby. I'm excited for this one. Excellent. Well, thank you all for joining us. And we will see you guys. We're going to be recording when we actually finalize our specific team's plans for Ironman, we're going to be recording that episode next weekend. So the 22nd of August.
Let me confirm the date.
Let me check with my lawyer.
We have it for Friday, August 23rd at 8 p.m. Central Time.
Okay, well, I can almost do math. The 23rd. We'll be doing our more normal routine Ironman prep where we'll actually have decided decks and talk more about that stuff. So that'll be fun. And then after that, we won't see or talk to or release anything until BusterCon. So we're excited to see everyone. Check it out on our website. There's links. There's information. There's obviously the way you can go buy tickets if you're interested in checking it out. Obviously, feel free to throw us any questions if you have them. We're just in our Discord. That's searchable. It's Mythos Busters. And yeah, fantastic. Happy Friday night, everyone, and have great Arkham. We'll see you at BusterCon.
Bye.